Peace everyone, Unmask here, and welcome to an interesting impromptu color pencil live stream. So the other day I got this really small sketchbook in the mail because there's this paper that I used to use with my colored pencils, and it was called Stonehenge Vellum, and I don't know, like a year and a half ago, I couldn't find it anywhere. And I only have like a couple sheets of it left. And I really, really like the paper with colored pencils. It's one of my favorite papers for pure colored pencil work because it has a really nice texture to it, but not too textury. And I don't know what happened to it. And I don't know what happened to Stonehenge paper either. It seems to have like changed in some way or whatever. But I found this paper, and this is still Stonehenge white, but it's by Legion or something like that. And the only conclusion I can come to is that this paper was like Stonehenge was bought out by Legion, and they just call the paper Stonehenge. And so this is still a vellum textured paper, and so I wanted to test it out, trying to do some photorealism. And when you do photorealism, it's not a good idea to ever work small, but I figured might as well just try to push the limits as best I can and see where I end up. Hello, Basic Gamer, Jessica, Mache, good to see all of you. If you guys have any questions, I'm just going to work on this portrait here, and it's a very slow and tedious process. But if you have any questions or topics or anything you want to chat about, feel free to ask me in chat, and we'll just hang out while I do this. I mean, I was going to be doing this regardless if I live streamed it or not, so I figured might as well just turn on the camera, plug in my microphone, and do a little live stream, since it's been a while for a number of you. And yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. I've already had a really productive morning. I just finished shooting episode 6 of Peaceful Pastels. I haven't edited it or done anything like that with it yet, but probably do that on the weekend. It doesn't take me that long. Probably do that Sunday or something. And then you'll have another episode next Wednesday. So yeah, that is my morning so far. Hope everyone had a fantastic week up to this point. It is Friday, so the weekend is upon us. Good morning, Dewa. Still trying to smooth out this eye, make it look right. I was working on this yesterday for, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, and I wasn't really working with my lights on. I was working somewhat in the dark, which is never really a good idea to do when you're trying to put in small details and all of that. Oh, hey, what's up, Stephanie? Yes, it has been a while. Hello, Stacy. Well, I'm glad you stopped in to say hello. Appreciate that. Do I use cool gray for the eye? Let's see here. I have I have one cool gray here, and then I have a warm gray. I also have a nougat and earth green. You would like to know if I use any solvent for blending. I do sometimes, yes. Yeah, I do sometimes use solvent for blending. I am not using solvent right now, however. In this project, I am just using a standard paper blender thing. So nothing, no brushes, no solvent, just a paper blender and slow, tedious layering of my pencils. If you guys remember, it was actually last year around this time that I did. I challenged myself to do a photorealistic drawing. Of course, I wasn't working this small. I'm probably being a bit too ambitious with a drawing this small. Photorealism at this size is like pretty impractical. Just saying, it's really not the most practical size to be working at to attempt such thing. But I wanted to test out this paper, and I might as well just go for something that I'll probably fail at to get a really good idea if I like this paper or not. Because I just bought like this really small pack of it so I could test it out with colored pencils. And if I like it, which so far I have liked it. It seems to work exactly the way that I want it to work. Just need to keep layering until I get that really slick, smooth surface. And then I'll buy like a full-size pack, because this paper is kind of expensive. And I have to have it shipped from the UK, so I figured I might as well just get a small thing and test it out. I am doing very well, Stephanie. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm kind of planning on bringing back the streams. Not quite just yet. I'm just doing something. I just wanted to do something today and kind of surprise everyone. I mean, I have been streaming. I stream twice a week, and I've been doing that nonstop the entire year. And then once things started opening back up, I switched my streams back over to Patreon, where they always kind of have been. And what I've been working on in the background, that unless you've been over on Patreon, you're not going to really know anything about. But I'm in the process of working with a web developer, and we are building a new website. And I'm going to transition off of Patreon. I won't stream on Patreon anymore. Instead, I'll be streaming on my website. And I'm creating my own subscription-based website called the Unmask Art Club. And I will host all of my tutorials there, and it'll be 1,000 times better than Patreon has ever been as far as organizing the tutorials and all of that stuff. So I'm in the process of doing that. I've been doing that for the past month and a half. And I'm hoping to have it launched in another couple weeks. We've kind of hit like a roadblock right now, but hopefully that will be solved relatively soon. Do I know Knee Yellow? I know of him. I don't know him personally. Yeah, I've seen his video recommended, drawing drawing a hyper realistic portrait or whatever. But I haven't seen anything else from him. I saw his video and I remembered his name. Very, very, very good artist. He's really nailed down that photorealism quality in colored pencils. Can I zoom in? Yeah, I can zoom in. Make sure everything is in focus. You're getting, I mean, this is like the size of my pinky. So you're getting almost too close to the paper. Maybe I'll zoom out just a little bit because that's just a little bit too close. If you get caught up looking at all the little dimples in the paper and stuff, I don't think you'll really see what the image itself looks like. So I'll zoom in as much as what I am now. I think that's a good amount. Oh, hey, what's up, Sergio? Yeah, I'm just decided to turn my cameras on and hit the go live button. That's all. I thought it'd be fun to hang out with everyone and chat. So that's really all it is. How has everybody else been doing? Anybody got any interesting projects that they're currently working on that they want to talk about? Oh, have I been missed? Am I self-taught? Yes. Yes, so I've been drawing with the intention of getting better since I was 6 years old. And the reason I phrase it that way is because I think just about every child, draws at some point in their life and colors and does like artsy things. But what I was doing was I was actively practicing since I was 6 years old. I would draw the same thing over and over again. There were certain subjects that I liked. I liked dinosaurs. And I liked cartoon characters. And so I would just kind of draw them over and over again. And I did that for several years. And then I got into doing cars right around 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And so I did a lot of car stuff. And then in 8th grade, I kind of started to get into drawing people and kind of designing my own characters, because at that point, one of my favorite activities was video games. And I always really liked the idea of creating my own video game characters. And I wanted to be a video game character development artist. So I wanted to create characters with video games. And so that's when I got into drawing people. And when I got into drawing people, I simultaneously got into the art style of manga. And so I drew that type of Japanese manga style characters, and that's kind of what I spent a lot of time doing throughout high school. And I did a little bit of painting throughout high school as well, but not very much. I got familiar with mixing colors. That's something that I did a lot of, because all of the paintings that I had ever done, pretty much up until the age of like 22, only involved the primary colors in black and white. So throughout the years, I developed a really good understanding of color mixing and color matching using a limited color palette. Call of Duty was one game that I played so much of. That was post high school though. When I was in the military, it was all about Call of Duty. Oh, I played so much Call of Duty. What paper am I currently using? So the paper that I'm using right now is Stonehenge Legion. I don't even know how to call it. I'm still confused. It's Legion paper, but it's the Stonehenge white. So I'm not sure. I've tried to figure it out. I've tried to look it up. So if anybody knows, please let me know. I think Legion was a paper company, and they bought Stonehenge. They kept part of the Stonehenge name by calling the paper itself Stonehenge. So it's Legion paper. It's and then Stonehenge white, I think, because I can't find the Stonehenge vellum paper that I've used for a really, really long time, and so I got this to test it out to see if it's a valid replacement for the Stonehenge paper that I only have like 2 or 3 sheets left of, because I really like the paper for drawing like this. So one of my favorite papers for Polychromos pencils, particularly Polychromos pencils. I don't really want to use Polychromos pencils on any other paper other than that Stonehenge vellum that I can't seem to buy anywhere anymore, or find it online, or even prove that it exists. And so I just need to find a replacement for it. And so far this paper is doing pretty well. It seems to be very similar to what I have been missing. a question regarding Polychromos versus Luminance versus Prismacolor. It's a subtle difference, but I would say it mostly boils down to translucency and density. Everything that you do with Prismacolors or Luminance, you can do with Polychromos. I think there's more than enough evidence to suggest that all of those pencils can be used interchangeably. But one thing that I think sets the Polychromos apart from their softer, waxier counterparts is that with the Polychromos, I love blending with this. This is just a cheap paper blender. And when it comes to blending Polychromos, I prefer to blend with this paper blender than I do with solvent. And so that's why I'm doing this. Or this is why I'm using this tool to blend as opposed to using solvent. Polychromos pencils are all translucent, so it takes quite a bit more layers to cover up the paper completely. But all the layers are a lot thinner. They're not clumpy. They're just thinner, and they look really nice when you take your time with it and kind of slowly fill in the tooth of the paper. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think this is Legion paper with the type of the name of the paper being Stonehenge, but this is Vellum paper. So if you look at this paper online, you can go to the Legion website, and it will describe this paper as having a vellum texture, and that's why I got it. It's pretty much the same on the back. It's a little bit smoother. It's a subtle amount smoother on the back of the paper, but that's just like any paper. No paper has the same texture on both sides. The back is always slightly less textured than the front. You can ask me whatever you'd like, Princess Duren. Yes, you can ask as many questions as you want, and you can ask me anything. I love questions, and I never get enough of them. Also, if I happen to miss anybody's question, feel free to ask it again. I try to keep up with the chat, but sometimes when I'm working here, I lose track of the chat, or I forget that it even exists. Because you have to remember that I enjoy drawing a lot, and it's very easy for me to just space out when I'm working. If I need a slightly more textured paper but the same soft finish, the Lennox 100. I think this paper might be the paper that I'm looking for. I don't think they got rid of the Vellum. I think they just rebranded, because I think that Legion bought Stonehenge. That's the only conclusion I can come to based on my internet searching. Because I can't even find I can only find like old Google images of the Stonehenge Vellum paper that I keep referring to. Can I tell you the number of pencils that I'm using? Yeah, I'm gonna list them off pretty quickly. 169, 189, 183, 230, 271, 187, 263, 172, 132, black, 130, 103. So those are all the pencils that I have laid out here that that I have used. I've used every single one of these pencils at least once. But I just keep switching from pencil to pencil. Trying to get this eyelid smooth. I still have some of those like pinholes in the paper that I'm trying to get rid of. Gotta get that eyelid there as dark as it's supposed to be. How many hours a week do I spend working on my art? Maybe like 3 or 4. Like I that probably doesn't sound like a lot, but really, I would say like a long week would maybe be 7 to 8 hours. So that's about, that would be like a longer day, or I mean, that would be like a longer week. And that's like based on average. I would say average, I would say around like 6 hours a week. Oh, hey, what's up, Krzysztof? Pleasant surprise seeing you in the chat. Let's see. Did I miss anybody's questions? Is vellum paper good enough for colored pencils? Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like one of the best papers that you can use, in my opinion. For pure colored pencil work, vellum paper might be like top of the line. Just I would say it's a really, really good balance of texture, because you can always get more texture more textured paper, especially if you are into the sanded papers like Pastel Matte or the Lux Archival paper that came out at the beginning of the year or late last year. And it's also a bit friendlier than the smoother papers. I use a lot smoother papers with my colored pencil work also. I use the Strathmore Bristol plate paper. And I wouldn't usually recommend that paper to people that are starting off with colored pencils because it's not the friendliest. If you make a mistake with it, it's really unkind as far as correcting it because there's not a lot of room for extra layers. And what that does is it kind of forces you to choose your colors accurately from the very beginning, because once they're laid down, there's not a lot of shifting around that you can do with that paper, since it doesn't take nearly as many layers as some of the more textured papers like the Vellum will do. In the past, what I would usually recommend is a Vellum paper for anybody that wants to get into colored pencils, because it's like right there in the middle. You can always go more textured and you can always go more smoother, but I think for people that are starting off with colored pencils, it's always best to just kind of start in the middle, get comfortable with the medium, and then branch out from there. Because the other thing that I always talk about with colored pencils is to pick every single paper. Try out as many possible papers that you can, because what you're going to find to be the best paper is always subjective, and it's going to be based on how it feels to you. Everybody likes different paper, and so I steer clear from ever referring to a paper being the best paper, because it doesn't exist for colored pencils. Yeah, I think I read that same statement, Sergio, regarding Legion, but every time I bought that paper, I never saw anything anywhere that claimed to be Legion. There was no Legion at all. There was just Stonehenge. So that if that was their brand, they failed to put it on anything I ever bought. It was always just Stonehenge. So maybe they just decided to change up their marketing or whatnot. Do I recommend Strathmore Bristol Vellum? Sure. I mean, Strathmore is a good paper brand. Like I said, I'll just say it again. Like, try as many papers as you can. Try out the Strathmore Bristol Vellum, the Bristol Plate, whichever paper you can get your hands on. Just give it a try. A lot of art stores have packs of like test papers that you can sometimes get for free or for just like a couple dollars or something, and you can test out like many different brands of paper, and have a really good idea of which papers you like, which papers you don't like. Because I definitely recommend branching out and just trying as many as you can find. Some advice on blending skin. So skin is one of those subject matters that I don't think we'll ever have enough questions answered regarding it. Really what it takes is patience. That's the biggest factor in creating anything that looks like what it's meant to look like. And I think what holds a lot of people back when it comes to portraits is color fear. And what I mean by that is the fear of applying a particular color, even though if you look at the reference photo, you can clearly see that color existing there. And so what I would recommend you doing is start with something small, maybe something like this size. This is like the size of my hand, just so you know, it's very small. And just don't care about it at all. Don't care if you mess it up. But whatever you do, apply your colors as dark as they'll go. Just apply them as dark as you can go. So like if you choose this color, which is 132 Polychromos, by the way, the light flesh, just apply it as dark as you can apply it. Who cares if you mess up? It's just practice anyway. But you need to force yourself past that point of no return when it comes to the application of the color. That is the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to portraits in the first place, is that they're afraid to go too dark on the skin. And it's not so much they're afraid to go too dark in the shadows, they're afraid to go too dark in just the normal areas of the skin. Like this lighter region of the skin that I'm coloring right now. I've used several colors to get the skin that dark. Like I used the 189, the 132. I've even used a little bit of the 263. And I just get the skin as dark as it needs to be, as dark as it's supposed to be, based on looking at the reference photo that I have. The other thing you can try to help get over the fear of applying your colors is to use paper that's not white. You can try like a gray paper or a brown paper. That's actually what I did when I started, when I attempted my first colored pencil portrait, which I don't know if I have that sketchbook here. No, I don't have the sketchbook beside me, but I mean, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, that I attempted my first colored pencil portrait, and it went pretty well. I mean, for my first colored pencil portrait, I think it turned out relatively good, because I had already been working with colored pencils for a year up to that point. I had just never tried a portrait. I was like afraid to death of trying a colored pencil portrait because, well, I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't want to invest the time and mess it up. But you have to be willing to. You have to be willing to invest the time and mess it up if you're ever going to see improvement in your work. You just have to take your time. That's one of the biggest factors, is investing the time into the work. When I started colored pencils, all I did was like still life stuff and animals. Animals are really easy because you don't have to be as precise with color. Like if you're doing something like fur related, you don't have to really be that accurate with the color. It's all about the contrast and values. So that was, for the first year of working with colored pencils, I did things like I did a frog. I think I did oranges. I'm trying to think of what else I did. I did some just animated pictures. So did like Pixar, like the digital three-dimensional Pixar characters. I did a couple of those, and I think that's probably a good stepping stone into the more realistic side of portraits. But yeah, so there's a few things that you can do that can kind of start to build up your confidence a little bit before just straight jumping into a portrait. I'm going to start working on the other eye. And this eye is a bit darker. My strategy here is I'll do this eye. I'll work the skin around the eye, and then I'm going to work up into the forehead. Do the eyebrow as well. Basically, exactly what I've done here, and then kind of bridge this gap and then work down into the nose. That's usually my usual path that I take with portraits. I always like to do the eyes first. I think that's relatively common though. I think just about everybody starts with the eyes. But as you can see here, I'm using a gray color for the scleras, which is the white part of the eye. And I try to refrain from referring to them as the white part of the eye, but that's what most people know them as. It's the sclera. That's the actual name for it. And the reason I always stress that instead of using the general term most people know as the white part of the eye is because it's never white. And so I try not to use that description for it, because then people associate it with the color white, and they always make them way too bright. They always make them way too bright, which is a problem that I see so often. And I saw it so often that I had to look up what the medical term is for that part of the eye, just so that I can stop calling it the white part of the eye. Anybody got any fun plans for the weekend? I don't have anything interesting, and I haven't really done anything interesting in a long time. So I don't personally have a whole lot to talk about. Pretty much just hanging out in my flat, doing as little as possible. That's about it. That part is usually gray-blue on young people, but turns more yellow as they grow older. Yeah, I mean, it can be a ton of different colors depending on the lighting. I wouldn't describe it as being blue. I would describe it more as being green. I find that the scleras are much closer to green than they are blue on a regular occasion. But I mean, if you get a portrait of a person that's kind of outside and the sky is bright blue, then you probably get some hints of blue in the sclera. But this is probably the most common color that I use, and this is earth green, number 172. I find that color. I find myself using that color most often to shade that part of the eye. I need to like tilt this up because I don't know which light it is. Maybe it's that light. Yeah, my light is giving me glare. I usually work with my table propped up, but for no good reason I decided to leave it laying flat for this live stream, and I'm getting a pretty bad glare where I apply the pencils. And if you're wondering why green shows up in the scleras so much, it's kind of just like the mix of colors, because you have like a yellowish tint. You kind of have a yellowish tint to the eyes, and then as you described, blue kind of being a common color. Well, you mix those two colors, you end up with green. So that's where you get like this faded green. Because this isn't like a pure green color. It's it's got a hint of blue in it. But of course, lighting is what really determines the color. Because you can have all kinds of different shades of reds and yellows and oranges and stuff happening in the eyes if you have a light source that's causing such things. Oh, I'm glad you were able to make it to a live stream. Glad you're here. Yeah, this is just this is a different live stream than I normally do. I haven't done a live stream like this in a while, and I wanted to work on this portrait here that I started yesterday, and I'm just doing it for fun, for practice and for fun. And I would have been working on it anyways, so I figured might as well just stream it. Let's see here, let's add a little bit of pink to the eyes, or well, to this eye in particular. Hello, Cassandra. Nice to see you as well. And Chandri, always a pleasure. How do I work, or do I work on commission and get a bad reference photo? Wait, how do I work or do work on a commission? I don't know if those are two different questions. I think that your question is, how would I work on a commission if I get a bad reference photo? If I get a reference photo that is unusable, I would not take such a commission. I would tell the client, this photo is, I am unable to use this photo, so unless you have a better photo, I'm not willing to take on the risk. And if the client wants me to do my best, they're like, well, I don't really care if it turns out perfect. Just, try to do your best and try to make it look better or whatever. Then I would let them know, like, there's a potential that it doesn't work out as well as you might imagine. But generally, I don't take commissions. I haven't taken a commission in quite some time because I don't like doing commissions. Because the moment that I take on a commission, it means that I'm working for somebody else, which I'm never really a fan of. So try to steer clear from that. Honestly, I don't even remember what my last commission was. I did get a request for a commission not too long ago, but haven't heard anything for a few months now, so I don't think the client will be getting back to me. I didn't start any work on it, and I never, even when I do take a commission, I won't even pick up a pencil before I'm paid, so I always take a 50% non-refundable deposit. And then I usually try to charge, anytime I get a request for a commission, my philosophy is I charge enough to make the client say no. That way, if they say yes, then I'm okay with doing the commission. That's basically how I go about commission work. How long does it normally take for me to finish a portrait? There's so much variability there. For instance, I'm going for like photorealism on this project, and I imagine this is probably going to take me somewhere around 100 hours. Give or take like 20 hours. It just kind of depends, because if I'm just doing realism and I'm not going for like photorealism quality, where I'm doing like every little detail with precision, because I'm basically coloring like one tiny dot at a time at this point. But if I do like just a normal portrait where there's not like a whole lot going on, normal, like just a decent size portrait, maybe where the face is like the size of my hand, that one would probably take me like 12 hours. How do I prepare my sketches? That's a good question. So I've addressed that before in several videos, but what I like to do, and what I always recommend people doing, if you're not doing it professionally, then I think the The best method is to do the gridding method so that you practice your drawing skills. And it's always the grid method is something that you should be good at, because it just helps you. It just flat out helps you. And being good at it is a very, very good thing to like have in your back pocket. So the gridding method is what I would recommend first. But since I have to prepare like new sketches all the time, and so I could spend hours and hours and hours detailing a sketch, erasing and correcting things, but I don't do that because that would take way too much time. So what I do is I take whatever my reference photo is and I create a digital line art in Photoshop. So I just take the photo in Photoshop and make another layer and draw out what the line art needs to look like. And then from there, I take the cheapest paper that I have, which is just plain white computer printer paper, and I trace it right off of my monitor that I'm reading these messages off of now. And then I take that cheap piece of paper, I flip it upside down, I color the back side of it with graphite. I call this the back tracing method. And then I simply retrace that line art onto my final paper. And then when I lift off the paper, I'm left with a really nice, easy ghost image of my line art. And then I can just finalize whatever small details are left over. Because it doesn't leave like a perfect imprint. There's always some kind of imperfections that I have to like adjust. But for the most part, it works perfect. And that's how I do it quickly to save a tremendous amount of time. And that's what I usually recommend people doing if they are short on time, or if they do it if they do art professionally like I do. There's just no reason to spend more time than what is necessary, because it already takes a really long time to do this kind of stuff. So hopefully the way that I described it is clear to you. But if you want a real-time example, last year I did a live stream drawing my self-portrait, and the very first day of that, because I live streamed like 30 days in a row working on my portrait, and day one was just transferring the line art, and I did it that way so that I could have that video to refer to people if they wanted to know how to do back tracing. I show how to do it in that video. Oh, hey there, Carol. And Georgina. Yes, using the good old Polychromos pencils, and I'm using Legion Stonehenge paper with a vellum surface. What is that? Why is that clumped up like that? Here, I'll show you the front. So this is what the paper looks like, because it still confuses me. And nowhere on here does it say vellum, which is really annoying because this is vellum paper. New to colored pencil drawings. Why do I completely draw a section such as the eye and then move on to a new area? Well, it depends. It depends on the level of precision that I'm going for. Now, this eye that I'm working on, I, I'm working really slowly because I'm going for the most realistic drawing that I can do at this size, since I'm working way too small to do like true photorealism. And one of the things that I always like to do, pretty much no matter what, is establish some kind of value scale. So in the eyes, I have like the darkest areas. I have the eyelashes, I have the pupil, and I have a lot of these really, really dark colors, which makes it easier to compare to some of the lighter colors around it to kind of grade how dark or how light I need to go. You could really start anywhere. I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? Like with colored pencils, you can't you can't widen the pencils like you can with paint, right? So you can't take a broad pencil and like color a large area. You have to start somewhere. When I'm doing portraits, I always start with the eyes because they're the most important feature 99.9% of the time. Very few times do you do a portrait and the eyes are not the focal point. Personally, I've never done a portrait that the eyes are not the focal point. So starting off in the most important section of the face just makes sense to me. And then if you're wondering why I start with the scleras of the eyes, is because it's uncomfortable to look at. And when you have like a white iris and then you have these fully colored scleras, it's creepy and weird, and I want to get past that as fast as possible. So it just motivates me to keep moving. But I also do it on behalf of everybody that watches the video or watches the live stream or watches the tutorial, because over and over and over again I emphasize the importance of not using white in the white parts of the eye. I don't even have a white pencil here. I don't have a white pencil out. I'm not using white at all. So I always color I always color the scleras first, because it shows everybody that watches there is no white there. It's not white because the paper's white, and you can clearly see that it's not white when it's just isolated the way that I had it there before I started coloring the iris here. I don't like seeing portraits where the scleras are just way too white. If you want your eyes to look real, you want your eyes to look three-dimensional and deep and good looking, then you better not leave the white parts of the eyes white. It would be better to have them bloodshot red than white. Let's see. Oh, hey there, Artistic Escape. Good to see you. What are some tips to get that realistic look without doing hundreds of layers? Do 99 layers. If you don't want to do 100 layers, do 99 of them, and you'll get pretty close to the realistic look. When it comes to colored pencils, the less layers you put down, the more colored pencil look you're going to have. So if you want it to look more realistic, more like a photograph or whatnot, you cannot escape the number of layers that you need to put on. There's just no escape from it. You have to put several layers on. Now you don't have to go anywhere near 100. You don't have to go anywhere near that number. That's a crazy high number. But one of the main features that you do have to establish with the colored pencils is you need to have the range of values. So your dark colors, they need to be as dark as they should be based on the reference photo that you might be using. They have to be dark. They can't be mediocre in the middle. The lack of contrast is what makes colored pencil work look dull and uninteresting. And so the more contrast you have, the better things are going to be looking for you. And you don't need 100 layers for that. You probably, realistically, you can get away with like 3 or 4 layers. But you have to establish the range of values in order for it to look good. And that's all you really need. I would say that the most layers I think I've ever really applied to colored pencil work is probably like 5 or 6. And the definition of what a layer is in colored pencils is so vague. Like, what do you even call a layer? Like, what do you call a layer? I mean, if I touch this pencil to the eyeball, like I'm doing little lines here on the eye. But if I happen to go over that little line 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, does that count as 10 layers if I happen to go over that one tiny spot 10 times? I don't feel like that counts as 10 layers. So as I continue to get questions about like layers in colored pencils, the more vague it seems to be in what people define as being a layer in colored pencil. And I've had this discussion before in other live streams, like what do you define a layer to be? I don't even know. I've been doing colored pencils for like 6 years now, and I still don't really know what a layer is. I just keep applying the pencils until I get the result that I'm looking for. And if I feel like it's 3 layers, I'm gonna say it's 3 layers. I don't really know what else to say about layers. Oh, hey there, Andrea. Good to see you as well. And Anna, hello, hello, hello. Would I sometimes blend skin tones with white or use another light skin tone? No, I would definitely not recommend using white to blend skin tone. And here's why. The first reason is that you are going to be lightening the color. So unless you want to lighten the color, which you probably don't want to, you're also going to be desaturating the skin. You mix white or black with any other color, you're going to lose saturation. So your orange, your yellow, your red, it's going to become less red, it's going to become less orange and less everything if you mix white into it. So you want rich, bright, colorful skin. The last thing you're going to want to do is mix it with white, because you're going to dull the skin out and you're going to get a really washed out looking face. I think the best option you can take when you want to like smooth out the skin and maintain color is to use a combination of the colors that you've applied. So for instance, like I don't want the skin to be like this super bright pink color. So instead I mix it with like a little bit of like warm gray, or even a little bit of cool gray. I might mix it with a little bit of ivory, and then I might do a light layer with some brown. And so I'll mix all these colors together, and I'll just keep applying them over and over and over again. And it will smooth out as I go. And the entire time that I'm doing that, at no point am I really losing my saturation. That's actually what I use my gray for. Gray is like the most overlooked color in skin. So much of skin is just gray. People think like this color needs to, like skin needs to be this bright in saturation, but really skin needs to be about this bright in saturation. So let's see, I wanted to smooth that out. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that I don't miss anybody's questions. If I happen to miss your question, feel free to ask it again. Try not to miss anybody. I don't actively avoid questions, so. What pencil sharpener do I use? I use a Jacquard electric sharpener. And I have zero problems getting sharp points. Someone in chat most likely knows how to spell Jacquard, but it is a Jacquard electric auto stop pencil sharpener. And from what I've gathered, it's really only available in the UK. I ordered mine from Jackson's Art Supply. I don't know if anybody discovered a US version of it, because it always has a UK plug, so I have to have a wall adapter to use it. And if you're unaware, I live in Europe, so I live in Poland specifically. So if you're wondering why I have it, it's because, well, I live pretty close to the UK, so. Trying to get the values right in this iris can be tricky. It's kind of like a brown and a green color. Don't think I have the sclera quite dark enough. Tricky eyes. Tricky eyes. Let's see here. Oh, hello, May Brox. You watched almost all of my YouTube streams. Wow. I don't even want to know how long that took. Even though it took me exactly the same amount of time to make them. I'm glad to hear that you've learned a lot from my videos. That's awesome. That is why I do this. Actually, yes, I have a video, Artistic Escape. If you search for the video, trying to remember the title, it is How to Color Everything, a Guide to an Effective Color Palette. That is the method that I use. That video will break it down. That is the method that I use to color and paint everything that I ever do. That exact method in that video. It is as foundational and basic as you can imagine. And it will significantly, if you implement that into your planning process, you will significantly improve your colored pencil work. Hello, Farhan. And artist Ashu. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's bring in some of this color. Still not 100% sold on the Sclera here. Feel like I need to go darker. Seems about right. It's hard to really gauge the accuracy and the value when the paper around it is still white. So it'll probably be best to just start coloring in the skin so I can get a little bit better idea. I didn't have any time frame for which I was streaming today. I was just going to kind of work on this portrait for as long as I felt like doing it. But let me assure you that as long as you guys have questions for me, I'm most likely just going to keep streaming. So the more questions you ask, the longer the stream will be. But I can't stream like a crazy 6 or 7 hours. I could have if I started earlier, but I was unable to start earlier. But I could definitely go for maybe like another 2.5 hours if you guys keep the questions and stuff coming. Because otherwise I'll just run out of things to say, and nobody wants to watch that. Oh, and for those of you that might have just joined in the past half hour or whatnot, I started my morning off today recording the next episode of Peaceful Pastels. Kind of gotten into a pretty good rhythm putting out those episodes, so I utilize my Friday mornings to record a new episode of Peaceful Pastel, and I have it hanging up on the wall back there. But I really, it might be one of my favorites actually. I kind of love the colors. Yeah, I kind of love the colors of it. What kind of exercises can I do to improve your line art? That's a really great question. There's a lot of like basic things that you can do, like, you know, just drawing circles over and over again, practicing your line and your hand control. That was something that I never did, like way back when I started drawing, like 25 years ago, I just spent a lot of time drawing. That's all I really did. And I've always been really light-handed. So that's kind of like a thing that people struggle with sometimes, is I can touch a pencil or a pen to paper with like zero pressure, like just the smallest amount of pressure. And I feel, for me, it feels like it just comes naturally, but other people, they press really hard. And I would say making sure that you're not pressing hard is probably one of the first things that you can practice. And if you can draw and color with a really light pressure and a lot of pressure control, that's probably going to be one of the more important features of good line art, good drawing, is just being able to control the pressure. Aside from that, like, yeah, the basic exercises of like drawing circles and shapes over and over again, and just getting your hand movements more fluid and natural, that's something that you can always do. Though I've never personally done it, so I can't attest to how well it will improve your overall ability. But it's things that I've come across that I heard help. I just draw over and over and over again. And I've been doing it for so long that it's never really come up as far as getting better at my line art and stuff. And I actually have an example. I did a little sketch yesterday. So here's some of my inking. So my line art is fairly decent. I would describe as being fairly decent. Do I have a special hashtag if people want to share their work? Well, for the peaceful pastels, the hashtag, just hashtag peaceful pastels if you're following along on that series. That's the only hashtag that I have, though. Beyond that, like sharing your work, have the Unmask family Facebook page, of course. Chandra, you know about that. And you can share your work, but I want you to share it with the idea of getting better. Like, when you share it, I want you to expect people to give you input to improve. So if you do share your work in the Facebook page, make sure you do it within the context of asking people, like, this is my colored pencil drawing. I did it on this using these pencils. How do you think I can improve? Or I struggled with this. Does anybody have any ideas or tips that can help me out? Something along those contexts. And if you do that, you can share your work in the Facebook group. What I don't want to see, and what will be almost immediately removed by the moderators in the group, is if you just share your work for the sake of sharing it. Because nobody really learns from looking at a picture, so I want people to feel like they can share their work and expect some insight on improving, because that's what I've set the Facebook group up for anyway. The whole idea of it. Let's see. Do I enjoy Vellum surface for realistic drawings? Yes, in fact, I think it might be the best. I think the Vellum surface might be the best surface for the realistic drawings. Not because of the smoothness. Actually, it's because of the middle of the road textureness, if I can describe it that way. Because the vellum paper, it is a relatively smooth paper, but it has plenty of texture. Like you can actively feel the texture when you put your finger on it. And it has like the perfect texture because you can apply like several layers comfortably without struggling, and you don't have to like apply a million layers in order to cover up the paper because it has too much texture. So you're not fighting back against the texture of the paper like you would, say, with colored or with watercolor paper. I feel like watercolor paper just has a bit too much texture, and you just have to try a little bit too hard to cover it up. And the vellum paper is just a really nice in between, don't have to try too hard kind of paper that I really like. Let's see. Do I have any tips for shading? I get a question about shading every once in a while, and my wife, she has been asking me to teach her how to shade since we've been together, so for 6 years now. And I did a little bit of a shading tutorial actually yesterday for the Patreon live stream. And I kind of talked about like establishing light and kind of working through some of the just the physics of light and how to think about it as it hits an object and how it would kind of project that object's cast shadow. When it comes to the topic of shading, the reason I've not done a tutorial on it specifically is because I have absolutely no idea how to approach it. I think when it comes to the question of how do you shade things, I feel like it's very similar to the question of how many layers do you apply? Because what exactly is a layer? With paint, it's very easy. You paint over a surface, that's one layer. You paint it again, that's two layers. But with colored pencils, you're not doing like whole motions like that. So what actually is a layer with colored pencils? I have absolutely no idea. I just make it up. I just pull a number out of thin air, essentially. Usually, if I'm blending with solvent, once I blend once with solvent, that's one layer. Anything I apply over that is layer two, and then I blend with solvent again. Anything I apply over that is the third layer. Even that is totally subjective because I'm applying several colors on top of each other before I blend out with solvent. So is it not even a layer when you blend, or is it just how I apply the pencils? I have no idea. So I just make the number up. And when it comes to shading, what is the aspect? What is the aspect of shading? The only thing that I can think of is any value that's added to what would otherwise just be line art. So if you take just like here, this example here, this little sketch that I did, it's only lines, right? It's either black or it's white. There's no in between values. And as soon as you apply any other value other than the black and white lines, I think you start to creep into the realm of shading, right? So does shading just become coloring? If you're only using graphite, then shading is simply the bridge between the darkest values and the lightest values. And there's like a million ways of doing it, right? You have like cross hatch shading, you have stippling and pointillism, you have gradients that you can create, you have textures that you can apply that change the values of the surface. So there's just so many ways to think about shading. And when I think about shading in a general term, and the idea of creating a tutorial based on that generalization, I have absolutely no idea where to go with it. I can't even really describe it in a single sentence. And so without something more specific than just the general term of shading, I don't know if I can give you something that would be helpful. I would love to, but I just don't know. And I would rather give you I'd rather give you nothing than something that's not helpful. Let's see. What did I miss? If your colors don't feel natural, then shrink the number of colors that you use. If you're using a bunch of colors, try to shrink it down to like 5 to 7 colors, and maximize the potential those colors have. And use them throughout. Don't use one color in one area. You want to like kind of spread it out so that they're everywhere. That's how you create color harmony. How can I remain motivated when I do a drawing for a long time? I don't do a drawing for a long time. If I'm sitting down to draw, or if I'm live streaming or something, I'll only do it for like 2 hours, and usually just an hour. So between an hour and 2 hours. I don't force myself to sit down for a long time, and that helps me. That helps prevent me from just like being burnt out and overexerting myself. When I was younger, I would draw for like 10 straight hours and be totally fine, but anymore I just kind of keep it relaxed, and if I feel like I've made it to a decent stopping point, then I'll just stop. I don't force myself to complete something, because anytime you put yourself in that position where you're trying to force yourself to finish a project, what's going to end up happening is you're going to rush. And the fastest way to mess up your artwork is to rush, because that's when you make mistakes. The second you rush is the second you make a mistake. So I just try to avoid that the best that I can. It's also like all of my live streams that I do them for the purpose of teaching and helping people get better at what they want to do. And if I am in the mood to rush, not only does my work suffer, but also I think my explanation of what I'm doing suffers. And the example that I'm setting is very counterproductive to what I am always emphasizing throughout my tutorials. One of the overarching rules that I ascribe to being good artist is you have to learn to be patient and not rush your work. And the number of comments I've gotten from people saying I need to work on being patient is countless. I get it like every other day. And oftentimes it's from the same people. The same people just say it over and over again, because it's a lifelong struggle to be patient while you're working. So we're all struggling to be more patient with our work. Let's see. Am I using a particular kind of pencils? Yeah, I'm using Polychromos pencils. I'm not mixing them with any other brand. Sorry, I missed your question before Did the exercise of the spheres and cylinders last night. Oh, you did it. Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good practice for kind of establishing that understanding of three-dimensional shading, kind of understanding how those objects and light interact with one another. It's really quite an important skill to have when it comes to creating your own subjects and scenes and all of that. And actually, I have a funny story about that. So when I was still in university, what class was it? It was multivariable calculus. Yeah, it was multivariable calculus, and I had this midterm, and it was relatively easy midterm. Calculus is quite easy, a lot of fun. I really like calculus, but I ended up failing the midterm because there was only like 5 questions, and I turned like the second page or whatever. I turned the second page over and I started working on the third page. And then on the back of the third page, there was a problem. But what I had missed is that first page, when I flipped to that first page, is that there was a one-line problem at the top on the back side of that first page. And when I flipped it over, the way the page curled, I didn't see it. I just thought when I flipped it, the page just appeared blank to me. It just looked like a blank page. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I flipped it over and I continued working, and I finished the test. Well, I get the test back, a few days later, and I have like a 62% on it or something. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And so I flipped through, and I didn't really miss anything big on the test. I was like, what is going on here? And so I looked it over again, and when I flipped it, I saw that he had marked the question wrong on this page. And I looked at the top, and I saw that there was a question there. I was like, oh my goodness, how on earth did I not see this problem? And the true irony about it, missing this problem, was that it was the easiest problem by far on the test. It was by far the easiest problem. And on the back, the last problem was a significantly harder problem, but still not that hard. And you had to draw a graph and graph the shape that you're calculating the volume of. And I really liked to draw the graphs because I'm really good at drawing three-dimensional objects in space, regardless of the perspective. And so I went directly to my teacher's office, and I was like, when I took this test, I flipped the paper over and I explained to him what I just explained to you, that I had missed that problem. And I didn't see it on the test. And I was like, this is the easiest problem on the test by far. And I was like, look, I had no problem with the last problem, which is the hardest problem. And he looked it over, and my teacher he wasn't a lenient teacher by any means. He was very, very strict. He was actually by far one of my favorite teachers throughout my college experience. And the only reason I'm telling you this story is because the graph on the last problem, he appreciated my drawing skills so much that he decided to give me a few extra points for just being artistic. And so it always pays to be able to draw, simple cylinders and other three-dimensional shapes in space. So yeah, that's my story about about my calculus midterm that I almost failed, but because I could draw three-dimensional shapes really well, my teacher gave me just a touch of extra credit to kind of buffer the fact that I totally missed a problem on the back of the page. Oh, thank you, Archnova. Sorry, I was telling a story and I didn't want to interrupt by reading comments. So let me go back through and see which questions that I might have missed. And if I did miss yours, you can always ask it again. Let's see. Is shading creating the third dimension? Not necessarily. Different shading will generate a different three-dimensional quality to the work, but if you can, if you look at cell shading in cartoons, it doesn't necessarily make the cartoons three-dimensional, but it does give them a touch of three-dimensional quality. But they're still very obviously two-dimensional. I would say you have to actively have a light source established in the work for you to start getting into the more three-dimensional quality of work. Yes, I am indeed self-taught. Thank you, Sketch, for answering that question for me. You are very welcome, Arch. And if you have any questions for me, I am always happy to answer them. I need to zoom out of my reference photo a little bit. It's a bit too dark. I mean, too zoomed in, I mean. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like the live streams. I intend on bringing a live stream back, like a weekly live stream back to my channel. Just been working on some things, but most of you probably know by now that I won't be doing. I'm not doing the Inktober. I won't be doing Inktober live streams this year, and probably not gonna get back into that at all, really. But I do want to bring back at least a weekly live stream here on YouTube because I love hanging out with all of you guys and chatting and sharing my calculus stories. I know how all of you love my calculus stories. I mean, who doesn't love a good calculus story? But to be honest with you, like, I haven't been doing a lot of personal projects, or really none at all. Like this here, I'm just doing this for practice. I'm not doing this for a tutorial. I'm not doing this for any other reason than I enjoy making art. And so working on this is, one, I'm doing it to test out the paper. I want to test out this paper here. And the other reason is I just want to practice, do a little bit of, portrait practice and realism practice using Polychromos pencils. How to start creating good outline for a portrait. I think I have a live stream that's like maybe 2 years old. It could actually, it might have been last year. I don't know when it was, but I did a live stream tutorial where I talk about creating line art. Really, all you have to do, well, what I do is, I create my line art in Photoshop. I do that. And so you just have to think about what you would draw, where you would draw a line if you were drawing the portrait. So, I don't know. Can you see the line art? I don't know how well you can see the line art. Can you see it? Yeah, you can see it. Like the edge of the nose, like I just put a little line here at the edge of the nose so that I know where it ends. The nostrils, obviously. I kind of outline the eyebrow, where the hair touches the face. Just really basic lines. I just keep things really basic with the lines for the portrait. Like the jawline, I want to make sure that I have the jawline and stuff like that. So I just keep things as simple as possible. I am using Polychromos pencils. As a young artist, can cheap materials give good results? I would say generally no, but you don't have to spend a tremendous amount of money to get a few good supplies. The first thing that I would say is probably one of the most important purchases that you're going to make is a good sketchbook. You can get, this sketchbook here, it was like maybe less than $10. This is really high quality paper. Kind of small, but you can get larger sheets of this. I probably wouldn't recommend something like this. I'd probably get something that's like bound by rings if you can find a good one. But you can get packs of paper that are decent. The one thing that I would avoid is using cheap paper. You want to include the cost of paper into your budget. You don't want to go cheap on the paper. So there are like the lower tier brands of paper, or Strathmore is a good example. Strathmore has like 500 series, 400 series, 300 series, and so forth. You could get like 300 or 400 series Strathmore paper, and that's going to be really good paper. So that's one thing not to overlook. The other thing is you don't need the full set of pencils. So if you're referring to colored pencils and you want to get into colored pencils, just get like the 24 pack of any brand that you like. Prismacolors is a really great brand. Polychromos, Faber-Castell Polychromos is a really great brand. You don't need all the pencils. You can do so much with just 24 colors. In fact, with 24 colors, you can do just about anything with enough layers. Let's see. Sometimes I miss questions, so I'll try to not do that. How was my trip to the mountains? The trip was a lot of fun. Yeah, believe it or not, Poland does have mountains. I was not believing it because the mountains are to the south. They're actually right on the border of Slovakia and Poland. And my window here, my balcony that is over there that I've taken pictures off of before, faces south. and I am on the 10th floor of my building, so we're pretty high up, and I can see like really far, and there's no sign of any mountains at all. I have also taken a train from here to Prague. I've taken a train from where Prague is south west of where I live, and that's a 5-hour train ride. I've taken a 5-hour train ride northeast to Warsaw, and I've taken a train straight north up to Gdańsk, and that was an 8-hour train ride. On all of those train rides, it was as flat as you could imagine. Just, it looked like North Dakota, North South Dakota, just flat, absolutely nothing, like barely a hill anywhere. And so I've heard mountains, like I've heard people saying mountains are in Poland and stuff like that, and I was like, where are these mountains? Like I've went east, I've went north, I went southwest, and I saw nothing that resembled anything like a mountain. So I just straight up didn't believe that the mountains were actual mountains, and I thought that they were just going to be glorified hills. But believe it or not, you go far enough south to the point where you're basically in Slovakia, you will run into mountains that are technically in Poland. So Poland does have mountains. I am a believer. And it's very pretty. Very pretty there. Let's see. When I say practice, apart from surface and pencils, what is it that I struggle with in portraits? That is a good question. So one of the things that I like most about art is that, as much over the last 25 years that I've been doing art, I always have tried to get to some idealistic perfection. And I've often said that if the day that I create the perfect painting, drawing, artistic endeavor is the day that I'll quit art. Because it is that constant struggle to reach that idealistic perfection, whatever you might define it as. I define it probably as something different. And if I knew what the definition was, I'd probably be able to get there. But I don't know what the definition is, because I don't know what perfection looks like. But I just try to strive for whatever that might be. And portraits are something that I love to work on. I love doing portraits. And so I'm just trying to get to that perfect portrait, whatever it is. And it's not necessarily that I struggle with anything in particular when it comes to portraits, but it does test me. It tests my patience. It tests my color accuracy. It tests it tests the paper. And it gives me the opportunity to work with different colors. You know, I try to choose different portraits all the time, and just kind of explore the path of getting somewhere different. And so that's kind of what it comes down to. As vague as that might come across, I really don't have a better answer than that. I call it practice because I have yet to reach perfection, and anything less than perfection is still just practice to me. And I just strive to reach that perfection, whatever whatever that might end up being, I have absolutely no idea, which is probably why I'll never actually get there. But that's fine by me. I don't really actually want to get there. Hopefully that answers your question in some degree. Before I were YouTube Patreon popular, that is so generous of you to consider me YouTube Patreon popular. That is, yeah. You're being a little liberal with the word popular there, but I appreciate it. Did I set time aside to draw daily? I've never drawn daily. Maybe in high school I drew daily because I was continuously bored in class. But no, I don't really draw daily. I don't really do artistic things daily, even as a professional. If I do things too much, I get burnt out. I have like a brain that never slows down, and I think of like a million things all at once. It drives me crazy. And when my wife asks me what I'm thinking, she can never guess what potential answer I'll give her, because I'll just give her exactly what I'm thinking in the moment. But even one moment before she asks, I'm thinking of something completely different. And so I'm always looking for like a new creative venture. I'm always looking for like something else that starts pulling my attention, whether it's a video game or chess or a new TV series or sculpting or colored pencils or pastels or whatever. It can literally be anything. I avoid. I tend to get hyper focused, and I will just do that activity until I'm like, okay, I'm done, and then I'm searching for the next like great thing to start investing all of my time into. And if I did that, I think if I did that with art, and I have done it with drawing and stuff, just in the past few years, it just kind of burns me out. And so I avoid the daily thing. I don't think you have to do the daily thing to get good at it. So I avoid the daily thing to prevent myself from kind of getting burnt out from it. I don't want to say it bores me. I just want to say I don't want to, I don't want to feel like I want to avoid doing the activity. And so having a healthy balance of procrastination kind of prevents that, I think. Let's see. Where did I miss? Yeah, when I was in university for my bachelor's degree, I did basically two things. I went to school, I did my homework, and then I drew, and that was it. I, 4 years in 4 years in university, I made 3-ish friends. Yeah, like 3-ish friends that I actually spent time with outside of school. Just maybe 3. And I probably only spent time with them outside of school 10 times in the span of like 5 years. So when I say that I didn't do anything except my homework and drawing, that's pretty much the truth. Never went. All the movies that are made in the United States of like college students that like party, I don't believe it, because I've never seen a party. I've never heard of a party. Like, that's how non-social I am. And that's how non-social I was when I was in university. So trust me, I feel you. Not having any time, yeah. As a math major, where most of the time my calculus or differential equations or modern algebra homework would take me like 8 to 12 hours, and that was just one homework assignment. So it was like a full-time job just doing my math homework, and I was taking 2 math classes every quarter. So it was super intensive, and I'm glad it's over. And I don't know how I graduated because I'm horrible with classroom setting learning. Could I message your? Can you message your art directly to me? You can, but I cannot guarantee I will see it. Oh, hello, Marcus, from Brazil. The the highlight on the eye is just blank paper, yes. So it's pure white, I guess you could say. Have I ever visited Tatra Mountains? No, I have not. I've never actually been to Slovakia. I was just on the border. I guess maybe I might have crossed it, but that's about as close as I've gotten. Is there some advice I could give? Wait, if there was one piece of advice I could give my younger self as an artist, what would it be? Let me start coloring a little bit and think about that. That's a good question. Well, the first thing that I would do is I would tell myself to get better paper. That's just a personal thing. I didn't care what paper I used, and I regret it. I wish I would have used better paper. But no, oh, I would have told myself to learn the grid method sooner. I never knew of the grid method until I was 15 or 16. I think I was in high school. So maybe 15. I think I learned the grid method when I was 15. And I think if my 9-year-old self knew the grid method, oh, that would have been amazing. By the time I was in high school, if I knew the grid method for 6 years, I would be so good. I would be so good. So yeah, if I could go back and teach my 9-year-old self the grid method, that would be amazing. Sorry, that probably wasn't like the most insightful advice that you could have heard, but yeah, some of those really basic drawing techniques that have been around for like centuries, they're worth learning. They really are. The grid method is definitely among the highest that I highly recommend everybody learning. Because I was actually already pretty proficient with perspective when I was 9. Because when I was so I was 6 in first grade. Is that right? That seems wrong. Are you 6 in first grade? I never remember how old I am in grades. I know that I was 12 in 5th grade. 10 in 3rd grade, so 9. Like 8. So I'm like 8 in first grade? Why does that feel wrong? That doesn't seem right. Is that right? I have no idea. Was I 8 in first grade? 8 seems old to me. That seems old. I started my senior year, I was 17 years old. Right? Six? I would be 6. Yeah, okay, so I was 6 in the first grade. By the time I was in the third grade, I was pretty proficient with perspective. 1-point perspective and 2-point perspective. And the way that I got there is because the school that I went to actually had a good library. It actually had a good library. And I got really, really into origami when I would have been 8 in the third grade. I got really, really into origami, and I went to the library and I got every single book that had origami in it. And I just learned how to make like an origami frog. I learned how to make like a little tower thing, one of those floating lanterns. I learned how to do that. Of course, the crane. I still remember how to do the crane, actually, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I just got into origami when I was in third grade. And I'd just go to the library, I'd get the book, I'd sit there with paper, and I'd just fold origami. But one of the other things that I came across was a book, or 2 books, on perspective, drawing in perspective. And so I used those books and I learned how to draw in perspective when I was 8 years old. And I wish I would have come across I wish I would have come across the grid method. If I would have found a book on the grid method, I think it would have totally changed my life. I'd be so much better at drawing than I am now. So much better. Because I would have been practicing more effectively. If you practice enough, you'll get somewhere. You practice enough, you'll get somewhere. But if you practice effectively, you will get there exponentially faster. And so I would say the biggest change in my art skills came when I learned the grid method when I was 15. Because once I learned that, it unlocked my brain from the abstractness that are the shapes that make things up. So like portraits and faces and things like that, they always felt very abstract. And it when I was trying to draw them or whatever, it always felt like my hand and my brain weren't communicating properly. Because I could look at a reference and be like, oh yeah, I see the face, it's clear, the face is like this. And then my hand's like, I'm going to just do whatever I want. And my brain would never tell my hand to do it the way that I actually saw it. But when I learned the grid method after like a year and a half or so, pretty much exclusively drawing things using a grid method, my hand got used to moving in these abstract shapes, and my brain kind of internalized this measurement system, where now every time I look at something, everything is connected with lines now, even when there's no lines there, and that just makes drawing things 1,000 times easier. And I could be more proficient with it. If I had been doing it for 20 plus years, my brain would be 1,000 times more efficient at identifying those measurements in everyday objects or whatnot. Let's see. So looking at what I've done so far, is there something that irks me? Because to you it looks perfect. Yeah, there's two things that drive me nuts right now, but that's only because I haven't adjusted them. The eyelashes on this eye drive me absolutely crazy. I do not like the eyelashes on this eye. There's very little I can do about it at this point, but I will go back through once I fill in the skin more, and I'll try to make some adjustments. The other thing that drives me nuts is this eyebrow, but I haven't really done a lot on the eyebrow yet. I am using this paper here. This is the Vellum, the Legion Stonehenge White Vellum. I never got on very well with the grid method. I find it too restricting. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to do something that's more fluid, then I suppose the grid method can feel a bit restrictive, but the grid method is meant as a way to get used to drawing things accurately. Because if you just keep drawing things inaccurately, even subtly, it's hard to progress from that. And the grid method teaches your hand to start following the way things actually are. Because when I first started using the grid method, one of the things that I immediately recognized was how awkward certain placements of things felt. Like I would be drawing one eye and then I'd start drawing the other eye and it'd always feel like, man, this eye, why does it feel so far away? Or why does it feel like it's so high up? And then once I have the other components of the picture in focus or sketched out or whatever, everything just came together and I was like, wow, it felt so weird to have drawn that eye up so high or drawn the nose so far to the left. And then eventually, once that feeling kind of goes away, I feel like it's the brain and the hand communicating a little bit better. I don't remember the last time I used the grid method. Anytime I draw now, I just use a mental version of the grid method that I call scaffolding. So instead of drawing a bunch of lines, instead I just visualize them on the subject. Let's see. You're welcome, Savannah. You tried the grid method a couple times and liked the way it shows you the proper angles. Yep. Yeah, the grid method is just so worth getting good at. Because once you're good at using the grid method, the way that I think the progression should look is that at the beginning, when you're all over the place and your accuracy is kind of no good, you draw really small squares, because the smaller the squares you draw, the more precise your measurement. And as you start to get better and better and build your confidence, well, your squares get bigger. And as your squares get bigger, you have more room to kind of measure measure with your eyes more, and you grow your squares bigger, bigger, and bigger, and they're like training wheels. So, like really small ones are like training wheels that are always sitting on the ground, and then as your squares get bigger, it's like the training wheels are slowly lifting off the ground, so it leaves you more room to wobble back and forth, but you'll never actually fall. And then by the time you get to like squares that are, you know, real big that a whole eye fits into, your training wheels are high enough off the ground that if you lean too far, you're going to fall. And so it just, you can use it as a way to gradually wean yourself off of training wheels. Basically, that's the way I see it. And I think that's the way the progression should go. Because as you get more confident with your drawing skills, you see parts of the image where you're like, oh, I can draw that accurately. I don't need to put teeny tiny little squares to measure it. I can just draw it out in a larger square. And then at the end of the day, your square becomes so big that your whole piece of paper fits in it. Now you just draw. And the micro measurements become mentalized as opposed to physically drawn lines. This is not something that I think you're going to be able to progress through in a few months. This is something that you should spend, a couple years working on until it becomes second nature. That's the same thing that I feel happened with me and blending colors. When it comes to getting accurate colors, I feel like I've kind of ahead in that regard. I can measure colors and match them really, really well with any medium. It doesn't even matter what the medium is, because I spent so many years, like over a decade, essentially, painting and matching colors with just the primary colors in black and white. And so it just helped me kind of internalize a core color matching system that now I'm just so good at I don't even think about. And it's hard to pass on. It's basically impossible to pass on experience. I can teach you everything that I know, but I cannot give you my experience. Unfortunately, I can't do that. So the best that I can do is just describe what I've went through to progress and what I've went through to get better at what I do. And you can either follow that path or you can create one yourself. Totally up to you, but I can share my techniques with you. I can describe my thought process and whatnot to help you move along as fast as possible. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm using Faber-Castell, yes. Do I prefer the Polychromos more than the Luminance? Yes. But I mostly use Prismacolor. I don't remember the last time I even touched my Luminance pencils. Yeah, I haven't touched my Luminance pencils in probably over a year. I really don't remember the last time I touched them. I always use my Prismacolors for my tutorials because for beginners, Prismacolor is the best pencils because it's the cheapest and they are they're a good enough quality to get professional looking work. And then I would say, go, buy your Prismacolors, learn to love colored pencils, and then get your Polychromos and just color the world, and don't even worry about the unnecessarily high-priced Luminance pencils. I would say for the degree in which the price increases from Prismacolor to Polychromos, not worth it. Not worth it. It's like 4 times the price per pencil when you get Luminance pencils. You do not get 4 times the increase in quality. If you did, then maybe there'd be an argument there, but you don't. Picking colors is very hard. Picking colors should be one of the most fun aspects of planning your artwork. So if you find it difficult, what I would do is try to look at the colors that you like. Try to work with the colors that you like to look at, and see what you can do with those. So, I mean, if you're trying to perfectly and accurately match a reference, I can understand that there might be a little bit of frustration there if you're not really experienced with color matching. Like I said, I don't put a lot of thought into it because I feel like it's just second nature at this point. I look at a color and I'm like, well, I'll use these 3 colors to get there. But if you're being a little bit looser and you're not totally concerned, then just try to work with colors that you like to look at. I wonder if the visual of the lead and barrel of the pencil is misleading. I never look at this color, and I never look at this color. I only look at my color charts. Like, you guys have seen my wall of color charts. I don't even look at the pencils. Like, I don't look at them at all. I look at my color chart and I'm like, I need that color. And then that's the pencil I grab. Don't pay any attention to the colors at all of the pencils. Only what they show up as. This eye is taking me a lot longer than what I anticipated. But only because I'm enjoying the conversation with all of you, so don't blame me. It's all your guys' fault. Do I have advice on breaking the bad habit of trying to exactly copy a photo? If you're looking at it on a screen, turn your screen off. That's if you have it printed out, throw it away. I mean, once you take it to a certain degree, once you get to a certain degree, then branch out on your own and stop looking at it. That's probably the best advice, because eventually you're going to start, getting away from it a little bit. Have I tried the Derwent Light Fast pencils? No, because they have not sent them to me. If Derwent sends me their pencils, then I'll try them out, but I won't buy them. What are my thoughts on digital art? I love digital art. I can call you Nova. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I love digital art. Actually, the past like week or so, I've just been binge watching a ton of digital artists on on YouTube. I want to kind of get more into digital art. Yeah, I kind of want to get into digital art a little bit more. I made a bunch of changes to my studio space. It feels a lot more comfortable, and it's just it's just more comfortable. I don't know how to. I got studio lights, so I have two studio lights now that kind of makes it hard to have my eyes open, but it's really nice to be able to see the colors really accurately. And I felt like when I worked under my studio lights for the first time, it was like looking at my artwork for the first time. It was like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing to the paper. All these years I've been making YouTube videos, I might as well just been drawing with my eyes closed, or like squinted, or with sunglasses on or something, because I feel like I never saw anything ever until just recently. Do I use Prismacolors for commissions? Yeah. So the topic of light fastness has kind of permeated the colored pencil world quite a bit, especially I think recently in light of the Derwent light fast pencils. You know, they're always they even called them light fast. Like, if you if you are concerned about your colors fading, if you keep the drawing out of the sunlight, nobody's hanging. Who's hanging their artwork facing outside of a window? Nobody. So avoiding direct sunlight's pretty easy. If you use a final fixative for your color pencil work that's UV protective, that's going to extend the life of the colors even more. And then if you frame it, if it's worth framing behind UV protective glass, and then it's hanging on a wall inside somebody's house, you're not going to notice a change in those colors in your lifetime. I don't care how unlight fast the color is. You're not even going to notice the change in your lifetime. You're talking like at least 60 years. I wish that I had the confidence to suggest that my artwork is going to be so valuable in 150 years that I'm going to concern myself with which colors aren't light fast. I just straight up don't care. I don't care. So as far as like a commission goes, they're going to be dead before those colors change. So I mean, the money that I get from the commission, I'm going to enjoy, and they're not going to have anything to complain about their entire lifetime. Doesn't concern me. That might seem, what's the word I'm looking for? That might seem a tad bit inconsiderate, but if you think about it like what I just described, who cares? I just, there's some things that I care about in life, but that is not one that I do. I just don't have the energy to care about stuff that I don't care about, or at least pretend to care about things that I truly don't. And if let's say for instance, like basketball, right? I'm not a sports fan in any way. I can't start to care about basketball. I can't flip that switch, right? I can pretend to care, but deep down, I know I have no care whatsoever. If basketball didn't exist, my life would be better, because then I would have to never run into a basketball fan. But if I was to pretend to care about basketball, those deep down feelings would still exist. And that is the same thing with light fastness of colors. I just can't pretend to care. I probably talked about that for way too long. I don't even remember what the color was. I mean, what the question was. I think the question was just about the light fast pencils. Right? Wasn't it? Oh no, it was a specific question about light fastness. I try to read all the comments. I love questions. I love answering questions. So I try to read all the comments. Lilani, hopefully I pronounced your name right. Probably not. Hey, what's up, Coffee Cat? I saw you sneak in. I saw you sneak into the live stream. Just as I talk about how great digital art is, my favorite digital artist pops into chat. And if you guys don't know who Coffee Cat is, then you're missing out. Go follow Coffee Cat on Twitch, or she streams over there. Go to her website and read her manga and her awesome artwork. Oh my goodness, this paper. So long to cover up this area here. Oh, you've been lurking? Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. You're more of the lurker type. You like to lurk. Because you're often probably working on your own stuff as you listen to me ramble on about all kinds of nonsense. Leilani. Oh, okay. Leilani. That's a nice name. I like that name. Leilani. Where are you from, Leilani? I don't think I've ever come across anybody with the name Leilani before. Oh, hello, Rita. New to my channel. Well, welcome. I appreciate you coming by and hanging out. I'm glad you are subscribed. I appreciate all of my subscribers. Even the subscribers that always come to my episodes of Peaceful Pastels just to thumbs them down as they're premiering. I don't know who does it, but I see you. I even appreciate you, because whether you thumbs my video down or you thumbs it up, YouTube still sees it as an interaction. So I'm totally cool with that. Totally cool with that. You're more than welcome to think whatever you whatever you want. It makes me laugh because when I do the premieres of my Peaceful Pastel series, I always just sit there in anticipation, waiting for that one person that always thumbs down the video before it's even done premiering, and it just makes me laugh. Haven't been able to catch streams in a while. Yeah. Well, I haven't really streamed on YouTube in a while, so. Well, I always appreciate your company, Coffee Cat, so. Yeah. Oh, okay, Lucy. I will try to remember that. I always try to remember people's names if they have different screen names. How can you come to ideas for drawing and combine them? I would say, like, if you have an idea that you want to incorporate like other features to, I would say the best way is probably to just collect a series of reference photos. So say for instance you want a person standing, a car, and a bicycle or something. You want those three subjects in whatever you're trying to create, or maybe let's go with something a little bit more weird. Let's say you want like mushrooms, a snail, and a butterfly. Say you want those three subjects in your scene or in your artwork. The first thing that I would do, if that was what I planned on doing or incorporating into my work, I would just go around and I'd collect reference photos of those three items. So I'd look at pictures of mushrooms, I'd look at pictures of snails, and I'd look at pictures of butterflies. Because I mean, snails can look a few different ways. They all pretty much look the same. But butterflies, on the other hand, can look like a million different ways, right? They all have like different colors and different shapes and sizes and whatnot. And so looking at reference photos of just butterflies kind of narrow down, well, which butterfly do I want? And so collecting that information can be helpful, and it can also be inspiring. Maybe when you think butterfly, you just think of monarch butterflies. So you have this image of black, orange, white butterflies, but then you start looking at references of butterflies and you're like, oh wow, I've never seen a butterfly look that cool before. So all of a sudden now you have a totally new butterfly and new rejuvenation of your inspiration for doing the project in the first place. And then of course, there's a ton of different species of mushrooms that exist, so same thing can happen there. And then all of a sudden you have these three great reference photos, and you just kind of maybe you sketch out like how you want them to be interacting. Perhaps maybe you want the mushrooms coming up from the ground with the snail on top, with the butterfly coming down and the snail looking up at the butterfly. I don't know, I'm just making random stuff up. But I would say the beginning stage is just kind of asking yourself, what are you looking for? And then try to find as much reference to help you create those subjects, and maybe tell yourself a story about those subjects. And once you have a little story of those subjects, you can start combining them into scenes. That's the way I go about it anyway. I just kind of think about subjects that I want to work on, and and then I just bring them into a scene. For instance, I had a request to do a squirrel for the next pastel project, a squirrel or a chipmunk. And I was like, oh, I love squirrels. They're like one of my favorite animals. And so I particularly love red squirrels because their ears are so cute. And so I looked up reference photos of red squirrels, and I found a bunch of references that I liked, and then I looked up references of chipmunks, and again I just found references that I liked, and I was like, how can I combine these two animals into one project? And so I just put like a log there, and I plopped the squirrel there, and I plopped the chipmunk there, and I made them kind of looking at each other and having this like unspoken interaction. And so the next pastel tutorial that I start will be of that little scene that I made up with a squirrel and a chipmunk. And that's all the deeper I tend to go with my projects. But that's kind of my process that I go through. So I keep it relatively simple. I don't overthink it. I think overthinking things is probably the hardest thing to get past. Oh, hello, Nathan. Welcome. Have I seen sea snails? I have not seen sea snails. Hello, Mariella from Italy. You are very welcome for the tutorials. Always happy to make tutorials, so I'm glad you enjoy them. Do I watch Jazza? No, I do not. Do I work only from photos, or do you think it's important to draw from live? I don't necessarily think you have to draw from life. I think it's a different aspect of art that is a lot of fun, and I think that it's only beneficial to do it. But I don't think that there is anything wrong with only drawing from photos. I think it's perfectly fine. A lot of the stuff that I enjoy drawing, I don't have access to stare at in person, so photos are kind of like the only option. But I don't think that one is superior to the other. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like the way the eyes look. I love the pastels, but can't stand the sound of the pastels on paper. Yeah, sometimes it can be a little unnerving. And Leilani, Le, wait, Leilani, yeah, Leilani. Sorry, I was trying to remember how to pronounce your name. I get what you're saying. He is awesome, or he's an awesome artist. Yeah, I know of Jazza. I've seen his work before, and he is a really great artist. Yeah, I love his style and whatnot. But as far as like content on YouTube, I don't watch it. It's not particularly what I enjoy to watch, even though he is a great artist. Don't mind seeing his work, but watching his videos is, I think, different. Do I know Starved Rock National Park? I do not. No, I don't think I've ever heard of it. Oh, thank you, Marlon. I appreciate that. Do I do tutorials on different materials? No, I do not. Wait. Oh, you mean coloring different materials? Oh, yes. I mean, I have so many tutorials. I I don't know if I could list the number of different materials that I've done, but there's been, I mean, a bunch of different clothing material stuff. I don't know if gold ribbon. I don't know if I've done. I don't think I've ever done anything gold ribbon before. But definitely like a patterned material. So like flowering skirt, not flowering skirt specifically, but certainly like a print onto cloth. I don't think I've ever done a net. I've never done net. That one's. I mean, those are kind of specific examples, but yeah, I've definitely done several different types of material. You haven't decided to try colored pencils? Well, I would say, I mean, if you're into pastels, pastel pencils. If you like to work with just pastel pencils, I don't really know if there's any reason for you to pick up colored pencils, unless you feel the desire to. If you haven't decided, then I don't know. Maybe just wait and see. If you see some aspect of them later that you think seems seems inviting, then pick up a small pack. You could always just pick up like a 12 pack or a 24 pack of the Prismacolor or the Polychromos, and a small sketchbook like this, and try some things out and see how they feel for you. But you don't have to feel forced to do it. If you're not sure, then the hesitation might be a clue that perhaps it's not the medium that you want to get into, especially if you're a big fan of pastels, because the big difference between colored pencils and pastels is that colored pencils are very, very slow, and they're also very unforgiving. Like, the mistakes you make are often quite permanent, which is not how pastels are. Pastels are very, very friendly. So if you like those key features of that medium, then maybe not waste the money on colored pencil supplies. But if they do seem intriguing to you regardless of those features, then just pick up like a 12 pack or something. And I mean, you can do a lot with a 12 pack of colored pencils also. In fact, that's one of the things that I probably make a video on sometime this year. Is I'm just gonna order a pack of like 12 and do something that doesn't seem possible with 12 colors. because the mixing potential with colored pencils is still really, really high, similar to pastels. So there's a lot there that you can do with just a few colors. I mean, most of what I work on and most of what I create with colored pencils, I do with less than 15 colors. So even if I don't have the specific colors that I would use, there's still just so much potential with just 12 colors. Huge amounts of potential. Well, Julie, if you want to do if you want to learn how to do portraits with colored pencils, I sell a course on my website, specifically teaching you how to do a portrait with colored pencils. It's a 6-hour course. It takes you through my process of doing a portrait, and if you take those techniques and apply them to, any other photo reference or whatever, you can simply follow that same procedure that I lay out in that course and end up with a satisfying result, depending on how much time you put into it. But yeah, so if you're interested, I do have that course available. And for anybody else that might want to learn how to do portraits. All of the courses that I sell on my website, by the way, I sell 4 of them right now. I have two pastel courses and 2 colored pencil courses. All of the courses that I sell on my website are only $10, and they're all 6 hours long. So you get a tremendous value. In fact, it's quite possibly the cheapest colored pencil pastel course that you can find on the internet. And I do that because I think the information, if I could afford to give the information away for free, I would. And so instead I just give it away for a price that I can still pay the bills with. Okay, I understand, Diane. Well, if you isolate, anytime you're not sure how to do something, if you isolate the color and apply the color where the values change, and then add the texture, you can break down just about everything just with that. So, oh, hello, Gila. And Ollie from Australia. Capiche, hello. Capiche from India, I'm guessing? Could be wrong. Which country am I from? So I'm from the United States, but I live in Poland. Okay, Diane, you take care. I do not do tutorials on painting. Over the years, I have done some painting on my channel, but I wanted my channel to become a little bit more classified specific to colored pencils and pastels. So that's what I focus on nowadays. And that's just to kind of help create a little bit more of a cohesive audience. It's kind of a marketing thing. And if I didn't do this for a living, I probably wouldn't care. I'd probably just do whatever I want. But the focus aspect of my channel has improve the performance of it. So I have to do what works. But I don't do too much of what works. There's a lot more that I could do that would help my channel, but I don't like to do it. Do I have a pastel portrait course? I do not have a pastel portrait course, but we're doing we've done 2 or 3 pastel portraits on Patreon. Like, you want a course as well? I mean, we're in the middle of doing one. I wouldn't change anything. Honestly, I think the fact that you're getting them live streamed is more beneficial than if I were to do an isolated pastel portrait course. I might do one in the future, but I know that you're on Patreon, so you know that I know that we're doing a pastel portrait. Sorry, your question just makes me laugh a little bit. But yeah, I probably will do a pastel course eventually, but I don't have any plans to do one anytime soon anyway. Maybe next year. I've kind of put off the creating new courses. Although I probably should consider doing another course. Oh, hello, Ella. Or Chesh. Probably finish streaming in like the next half hour-ish. I'd like to finish this eyebrow and maybe apply some of the base layers of skin above it. What am I looking for? Yeah, let's just apply some of the skin color up here. Up here on the forehead. I don't think I'm going to finish the forehead today. There's a bit of skin texture that I want to try to capture. It's subtle, but I really want to try to get that, see if I can get that texture to show up just a little bit, even though the drawing here is a bit too small to realistically get it perfect. So if I can at least fill in the forehead a little bit, I think I'll be in good shape. maybe that will put my eyebrows here a bit more into context and they won't look so awkward, like weird caterpillars or whatever. I can also gauge this this side of the eye needs to be darker, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. Oh, thank you, Shraddha Art and Gaming. I appreciate that. And welcome to the live stream. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's live stream. I always appreciate your company and your questions. You guys keep me entertained. Honestly, the only way I can tolerate sitting and drawing in complete silence is if I have all of you lovely people to hang out with. I know that you guys hear a tinge of music. I have the music in the background on low for you guys, but I don't hear that. That is, everything is totally silent here for me. And it would drive me absolutely crazy if I didn't have you guys, so thank you for your company today. I'll have a new episode of Peaceful Pastels, episode 6, on Wednesday next week. So be on the lookout for that. For anybody that might be new to my channel, I do live stream twice a week, every week, on Patreon. Tuesdays are pastel tutorials, and we are currently in the middle of a very lovely pastel portrait. And just this week, we started a new colored pencil project. And the colored pencil tutorials are on Thursday. I do have a link for my Patreon in the live stream description if you want to check it out. I always appreciate the support of everyone that signs up on Patreon, since this is what I do for a living. So, yeah. I think the people that are signed up on Patreon and enjoy the tutorials, I think that they appreciate the level of detail I go into on explaining the process. I think a lot of people have learned quite a bit from those tutorials based on their comments, not just me assuming that they've learned a lot. I have over 250 individual tutorials that cover pretty much every subject that you can think of, with the exception of what was that Diane brought up. I haven't done a gold ribbon. I haven't done a floral dress or skirt. What was the third one that she mentioned? There is a third one. Can't remember what it was, but yeah. So I haven't done gold ribbon or a flower dress, but I've done pretty much everything else. And I also take requests. So I always take into account what you want to learn. And we just finished up an owl project, colored pencil owl project, which was a request. Somebody was like, "Can you draw an owl with colored pencils?" And that was the very next project. So yeah, if you want to sign up, that's what you can expect. Which colored pencils do I prefer for portraits? Prismacolor or Polychromos? So when it comes to portraits, it varies on which one I like. Well, not necessarily portrait. It kind of varies on what my end goal is. If I'm doing something that I want to be photorealistic, hyper realistic, however you want to describe it, then I want to use Polychromos because their tips, they can hold a sharper tip for longer, which just makes it a lot easier. But also their translucent colors allow for really precise color accuracy. And since they're more dense, the way that they lay on the paper is less clumpy. So you don't get those like kind of weird wax bloom clumps that you get from Prismacolor or Luminance. Luminance also has the clumpiness. And that's what I like for photorealism, because it's very slow, it's relaxing, and I also like that just blending them with a paper blender. I love blending the Polychromos with a paper blender. It's just my favorite. It's so delicate and so precise. You can't do that with Prismacolor. But I like Prismacolor for pretty much everything. And they're great pencils. And if I'm not going for this really long, slow process of precise color matching and detail and stuff, then I'll use Prismacolor for portraits 9 times out of 10. Sorry, I don't want to miss anybody's question. You have a great day as well, Nova. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Lucy. Yeah, the whole quarantine thing happening all this year pretty much it's been a big burden on everyone. And to know that maybe I helped a few people through it with the tutorials and live streams and the videos and all of that. I'm glad to have been a part of what helped you get through. Because I know some of the content creators and streamers that I've enjoyed watching over the past several months. They've given me a good source of entertainment and just kind of a distraction, a healthy distraction through these trying times. So I'm glad to be among someone that has helped and not just, caused unnecessary drama. Because I feel like that's all that's played on the news. Oh, you like the Kawaka that I did a few years ago? Yeah. I was on an interesting animal kick. I also did a pastel project of a I just had a name in my head. It's another Australian animal. I don't think it's a marsupial like a quokka, but what is the name of it? I can like see the name in my head. It kind of looks like a really hairy gerbil, like a big gerbil. Oh gosh, what is it called? Somebody help me out. What's the giant gerbil looking thing? in Australia. I did one in pastels a long time ago. It's a tutorial also on Patreon. Oh, jeez. That's gonna drive me nuts. Somebody save me, please. Tell me what that animal's called. Capybara. It's a capybara. Nobody figured it out yet. Capybara. Yeah. Yeah. I was able to remember it. Isn't that one of the most like satisfying things in the world? When you can't remember a word and then it drives you nuts like all day, and then out of nowhere you're like, capybara, and then everybody looks at you like, what? Because nobody was talking about it, but you're just super happy to finally remember what the word is. I can't believe I remembered. I don't normally remember. I would have probably had to jump up on Google, but yeah, a capybara. I did pastel painting of a capybara. That's not native to Australia? Oh, it's not? I thought capybara was. Where are they from? They are in Australia though, aren't they? I'm just going to do a few layers of color here on the forehead, and then I'm going to smooth it out with my little paper blender, and then I'm going to call it a day. I gotta do some cleaning. I also need to get some tea. I need to make some tea, and maybe I'll start editing the episode of Peaceful Pastels, because I just finished recording it and I transferred the video files onto my computer, but I didn't start the editing process. Let's see here. I need some of this dark color here. I need to darken this eye over here as well. It's not nearly as dark as it needs to be. Pretty close, but not quite there. Oh, capybaras are South America? Interesting, I didn't know that. That is interesting. Yes, I did another realism with colored pencils last year around this time. Good memory. Yeah, I didn't finish it on stream, but you saw the finished result of that? It's on Instagram. It's on Instagram. That was a really fun project. Spending about 100 hours on it. And it was not really that much bigger than this, but it was closer up, like much closer view to the eyes, because it was just the eyes. There was no nose or anything. Wait, was there a nose? There was a little bit of a nose, just the bridge, not the nostrils. There was no hair either. I've never tried photorealism with hair. So this will be interesting. Oh yeah, it was the very last drawing journal live stream. If the paper blender is leaving a weird texture, you're probably pressing too hard. Because I do not press. I don't press really at all with the blender. Just a very, very light pressure until I start to see the change that I want. A lot of, if there's any texture that's left over, it's going to be the paper itself and not the not caused by the blender, because the blenders can't really, unless you're pressing into the paper, the blenders themselves can't really create texture. I just want to add a little bit of dimension to the face before I call it a day. If you guys ask me really, really kindly, then maybe I'll stream on Monday as well. If I can get like enough people in chat to ask me to live stream on Monday, then I might consider it. But if nobody says anything, then I probably will just make the decision on my own. How many hours so far on this project? I worked on that for like 2 hours yesterday, and then I've been streaming for like 3.5 hours, or like 3-ish, like 3 hours. I would say like 4.5 hours. Yeah. Yeah, so like 4.5 hours into this project. Because of course there was some times where I wasn't really doing anything and I was just kind of talking to you guys. I think 4.5 hours is a good round off. All right, please. Okay, that might be enough people. Yeah, that might be enough people to convince me to stream on Monday. I'll just keep working on this, so just so you know. Or maybe I'll do something different. Who knows? Alright, let's do a little bit of yellow. yellow is a very overlooked color in skin. Yellow is a really good way to kind of tone down like the pink reds as it kind of pulls the red a little bit more towards the orange. So you can get some really good like mid-tone values, or mid-tone colors, I mean, by mixing like the pinkier peach skin color into a more of a yellowish color like this here. This color, by the way, is yellow ochre. Alright, I'm just going to blend this out. I could just talk at you for hours and you'd still love to listen. All right, maybe I'll just sit there. I'll just sit there on Monday. I won't do anything. No, I don't want to do that. I gotta do something. But yeah. Maybe I'll play with some pastels. That could be fun. Although I am thoroughly enjoying working on this portrait here. I'm having a lot of fun working on this paper. I'm gonna have to order more of this paper in a larger size, because that's really why I started this project in the first place, or started this portrait. I only started this portrait because I wanted to test this paper. I wanted to make sure that this paper truly was a replacement for the original Stonehenge Vellum. And I can now say that I think it is. I do think it is the replacement to the Stonehenge Vellum paper that I used to use all the time, and then they changed it or something for whatever reason. Can't find it anymore, so this is the paper I am going to use for colored pencils because it is lovely. Well, with Polychromos pencils, it is lovely. For sure. With this particular technique, it is exactly what I'm looking for. Did I use a reference for this drawing? Yes. Yes, I have a reference for this person that I am drawing. I don't know if I'd be able to work this slowly if I was trying to do a portrait from my imagination. If I was to just, I'm just gonna make up a person. I don't know if I'd be able to put this level of patience into the project if I was just making up a person. That could be a fun experiment. I don't know if I want to do that on a live stream though. That just feels like an embarrassing moment waiting to happen. Okie dokie. I think I'm gonna call this live stream done. Obviously this project is nowhere near being done, but I think I'm gonna call it a day. I have some cleaning I need to do, but I am quite pleased with the way this is looking. So there is probably a better perspective for you guys to kind of see what the paper like looks like. You can still see a little bit of grainy texture here and here in some of the darker colors, but with more layering it should start to smooth out. But it's kind of a small drawing, so you can put it into perspective with my hands beside it. But anyways, I appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out. It was super fun. Since you all asked so nicely, I will live stream again on Monday. And yeah, aside from that, have a fantastic rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend, and I guess I'll see you on Monday. Just make sure you're subscribed and you're got notifications on so that when I randomly start streaming, you will be notified of it. And also join the Unmask Family Facebook group. Link for that is in the description, because I will also post there when I'm about to go live. So yeah, I will see you Monday. Take care. Peace.